Three-time Newbery Honor-winning and New York Times best-selling author of The 14th Goldfish. Jennifer L. Home. Penny from Heaven. One summer full of secrets and surprises. 1. Best seat in the house. Mimi says that heaven is full of fluffy white clouds and angels. That sounds pretty swell, but how can you sit on a cloud? Wouldn't you fall right through and smack onto the ground? Like Frankie always says, angels have wings, so what do they have to worry about? My idea of heaven has nothing to do with clouds or angels. In my heaven there's butter pecan ice cream and swimming pools and baseball games. The Brooklyn Dodgers always win, and I have the best seat in the house, right behind the Dodgers dugout. That's the only advantage that I can see to being dead, you get the best seat in the house. I think about heaven a lot. Not because of the usual reasons, though. I'm only 11, and I don't plan on dying until I'm at least 100. It's just that I'm named after that Bing Crosby song Pennies from Heaven, and when you're named after something, you can't help but think about it. See, my father was crazy about Bing Crosby, and that's why everyone calls me Penny instead of Barbara and Felucci, which is what's on my birth certificate. No one ever calls me Barbara, except teachers, and sometimes even I forget that it's my real name. I guess it could be worse. I could be called Clementine, which was the name of another Bing Crosby song that my father really liked. I don't think I'd make a very good Clementine. Then again, who would? 2. The Lucky Bean. Uncle Dominic is sitting in his car. It's a 1940 Plymouth Road King. It's black with chrome trim, and the hubcaps are so shiny, you could use them as a mirror. Uncle Dominic pays my cousin Frankie to shine them up. It's an awfully nice car, everybody says so. But then, it's kind of hard to miss. It's been parked in the side yard of my grandmother Felucci's house for as long as I can remember. Uncle Dominic lives right there in his car. Nobody in the family thinks it's weird that Uncle Dominic lives in his car, or if they do, nobody ever says anything. It's 1953, and it's not exactly normal for people in New Jersey to live in cars. Most people around here live in houses. But Uncle Dominic's kind of a hermit. He also likes to wear slippers instead of shoes. Once I asked him why. They're comfortable, he said. Besides living in the car and wearing slippers, Uncle Dominic's my favorite uncle, and I have a lot of uncles. Sometimes I lose track of them. Hey, princess, Uncle Dominic calls. I lean through the window and hear the announcer on the portable radio. Uncle Dominic likes to listen to ball games in the car. There's a pillow and a ratty-looking blanket on the back seat. Uncle Dominic says the car's the only place he can get any rest. He has a lot of trouble falling asleep. Hi, Uncle Dominic, I say. Game's on, he says. I start to open the back door, but Uncle Dominic says, you can sit up front. Uncle Dominic's very particular about who's allowed to sit in his car. Most people have to sit in the back, although Uncle Nunzio always sits up front. I don't think anyone ever tells Uncle Nunzio what to do. Who's winning? I ask. Bums are ahead. I love the Brooklyn Dodgers, and so does Uncle Dominic. We call them Dem Bums. Most people around here like the New York Yankees or the Giants, but not us. Uncle Dominic is staring out the window, like he's really in the ballpark and watching the game from the bleachers. He's handsome, with dark hair and brown eyes. Everyone says he looks just like my father. I don't remember my father because he died when I was just a baby, but I've seen photographs, and Uncle Dominic does look like him, except sadder. Got something for you, Uncle Dominic says. All my uncles give me presents. Uncle Nunzio gives me fur muffs, and Uncle Ralphie gives me candy, and Uncle Polly brings me fancy perfumes, and Uncle Sally gives me horseshoes. It's like Christmas all the time. Uncle Dominic hands me something that looks like a big dark brown bean. What is it? It's a lucky bean, he says. Uncle Dominic is superstitious. Just found it this morning. It was packed away with some old things. I got it for your father before he died, but I never had a chance to give it to him. I want you to have it. Where'd you get it? I ask. Florida, he says. Uncle Dominic loves Florida and goes to Vero Beach every winter, probably because it's too cold to live in the car then. Even though he lives in this car, he has another car that he uses for driving, a 1950 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. Frankie says he bets Uncle Dominic has a girl down in Florida, but I kind of don't think so. Most women want a new Frigidaire, not a back seat. Put it in your pocket, he says. It'll keep you safe. The lucky bean is big and lumpy. It feels heavy, not the kind of thing to put in a pocket, but Uncle Dominic has this look about his eyes like he might just die if I don't, and because he is my favorite uncle, I do what I always do. I smile and say, "Thanks, Uncle Dominic." For a moment the strain leaves his eyes. "Anything for you, princess," he says. Anything. It's a hot, sticky June day. School is out, and for the first time in months I don't have to worry about Veronica Goodman being mean to me. I used to like school, until this year. I probably wouldn't have survived if Mrs. Ellenberg, the librarian, hadn't let me hide out in the library. Lucky for me, Veronica Goodman doesn't like to read. The lucky bean rubs in my pocket as I walk down the street toward my house. I live with my mother and my other grandparents, Mimi and Pop Pop, and my poodle, Scarlett O'Hara. Even though she's named after a famous lady in a boring movie, Scarlett O'Hara isn't very ladylike. Scarlett has bad breath and likes to chase squirrels and has taken to tinkling on the good carpet in the parlor lately, not to mention other things she shouldn't be doing. Pop Pop's sitting in the parlor when I get home. He's listening to the radio and has got it turned up loud enough that the whole neighborhood can hear it. His favorite program is Fibber McGee and Molly, although he'll sleep through just about any program these days. We don't have a television set because Mimi says they're too expensive, which means they'll probably buy one right after I graduate high school and move out. I'm back, I announce. What's that? He asks. I said, "I'm back, Pop Pop," I say loudly. What? He asks. What? Pop Pop's a little deaf. Mimi says he's been deaf ever since 1918, when he came home from Europe with shrapnel in his leg. She says he left the best part of him somewhere in France, along with his ability to listen to anyone. There's a bad smell in the room. Pop Pop, what's that smell? I ask. Sure, I'll take an iced tea, he says. I spot the little brown lump behind the love seat. It looks kind of like the lucky bean Uncle Dominic gave me. Scarlett O'Hara's nowhere in sight. Look what Scarlett did, I say. Darn animal, he grumbles. Pop Pop can hear okay when he wants to. That dog of yours is sneakier than the Japs. Even though we're in a war right now in Korea, Pop Pop still loves talking about World War II, especially Pearl Harbor and how the Japanese attacked us when we were sleeping. He says it's the worst thing that's ever happened on American soil. No one saw it coming. Downright cowardly is what it was. I don't remember the war because I was too small, but I sure am glad we won. Eating breakfast in our house is tough enough without having to worry about being bombed by the Japanese. Penny! Mimi calls from the kitchen. We have a 2-story house. Mimi and Pop Pop live in the top part and Mother and I live in the bottom. My grandparents have their own bedroom, bathroom, and parlor, but they take all their meals downstairs with us because there's just the one kitchen. In fact, Mimi does most of the cooking since my mother has to work. She's a secretary at a truck factory. Mimi is standing with her back to me, facing the stove, when I walk into the kitchen. Her hair is going gray, and she's got it up in a bun. She's wearing a cotton dress with a red cherry print. Mimi loves colorful prints, and she also has a dress with cabbage roses, one with fruit segments, and another one with daisies. My favorite is the dress with the Hawaiian palm trees. I think it would be fun to go someplace like Hawaii. It's got to be more exciting than New Jersey. I don't have to look in the pot she's stirring to know it's peas and onions. The smell fills the air. Mimi likes to boil vegetables until they are pure mush and every bit of flavor is gone. I didn't even know peas could be sweet until I tasted them fresh off the vine at my grandmother Felucci's house. "What's for dinner?" I ask. "Liver," she says, and I have to make myself not groan. Mimi's liver is worse than her pot roast, which is worse than her beef stroganoff, and you don't even want to know about her meat loaf. "Set the table, please," Mimi says. I take the green glass dishes out of the cabinet and carry them to the dining room, where there's just a table and chairs and a sideboard. On the sideboard is an old clock and a framed photograph of my mother and father on their wedding day. We don't talk about my father in this house because it upsets my mother. I guess she's never gotten over him dying like he did and leaving her with a baby. She used to be a nurse at the hospital where he was taken when he got sick, but she said after he died, she couldn't go back there, that there were too many sad memories. In the wedding photograph, my father is wearing a dark suit, and his arm is around my mother's waist as if he's scared she's going to run away. My mother's wearing a white satin dress and carrying a bouquet of sweet peas. Her hair is long, past her shoulders, and curled like a movie star's. She's smiling at the camera like she's the luckiest girl in the world. She looks so happy, I almost don't recognize her. Mimi has been staring at the clock for the last half hour while Pop and I watch the liver and peas and onions get cold. Scarlett O'Hara is sitting next to Pop's chair, waiting for something to fall from his plate, which is usually a good bet. Pop takes a long slurp of iced tea and burps loudly. A moment later he burps again. Pop. I say. "What?" he says with a scowl. Honestly, I don't know which is more embarrassing, Scarlett O'Hara doing her business in the house or Pop burping all the time. And Mother wonders why I never want to have friends over for a slumber party. The front door opens, and Mimi straightens her shoulders and sits a little taller. "Sorry I'm late, Mother," my mother says, unpinning her hat and slipping into her place at the table. She's wearing a plain navy blue suit and has wavy golden brown hair, cut short, just below her ears. She uses Tangy Rouge on her cheeks and a little bit of red lipstick. The Tangy Rouge is the fanciest thing about her. "Do you know what time it is, Eleanor?" Meme asks, looking pointedly at the clock. "It's 7:30, that's what time it is." "What kind of place is that man running?" "Mr. Hendrickson had some last-minute dictation," my mother says. Mimi looks at my plate and says, "Eat your peas, Penny." I take a bite, forcing myself to swallow. They're just awful. They taste like something you would feed someone you were trying to torture. Pop is poking the liver with his fork. "I thought you said we were having steak," he complains. "This looks like liver." "Hi, Bunny," my mother says to me, and I can hear the tiredness in her voice. "How was your day?" Bunny is her nickname for me. She said she took one look at me in the hospital and I looked so small and sweet that she knew I was a bunny. "Look what I got," I say. I dig in my pocket and pull out the lucky bean and put it on the flower print tablecloth. Pop starts choking when he sees it. "Did you bring a dog turd to the table?" Scarlett O'Hara barks as if to deny she has anything to do with it. "It's a lucky bean," I explain. "Uncle Dominic gave it to me." "Lucky bean?" Mimi scoffs. "The only lucky thing." "Mother," my mother says in a warning voice. "Your father's people," Mimi says to me with a shake of her head. What she means is that they're Italian, and Catholic. Mimi and Pop Pop are plain old American and Methodist. They go to church every Sunday, and usually make me go too. My mother doesn't go to any church at all. Here's a good one, Penny, Pop Pop says. He loves jokes. Why does the new Italian Navy have glass-bottom boats? Why? To see the old Italian Navy, he hoots. Get it? Their boats are at the bottom of the ocean. My mother looks down at her plate and sighs. Mother, I say, Uncle Ralphie says he'll hire me and Frankie to work at the store a few days a week. Can I? It could be my summer job. Uncle Ralphie is one of my father's brothers. He owns a butcher shop. What will you be doing? She asks. Sweeping up, stacking, delivering groceries. Deliver groceries to strange people's houses? You're a young girl, Mimi says, sounding appalled. I don't think so, Penny, Mother says, which is what she always says. My mother's afraid of just about everything that involves fun. I can't go swimming because there might be polio in the public pool. I can't go to the movie theater because I might catch polio there, too. I can't go on the bumper cars because I could hurt my neck. Don't do this, Penny. Don't do that, Penny. It's too dangerous, Penny. Anything could happen, Penny. Sometimes I want to say that the most dangerous thing in my life is Mimi's cooking. Please? We'll be working at the store most of the time, I say. My mother and Mimi share a long look. Mother doesn't like it when spend a long look with my father's family, although she tries not to show it. The two sides of the family don't get along. I've never even seen them in the same room together. I know it wasn't always this way because of the famous story my Italian relatives like to tell about my parents' engagement party. Apparently Uncle Dominic used to be a real practical joker, especially with Mother. At the party he gave my mother a box with a big pink bow. My mother opened the box expecting to find candy, but lying there in tissue paper was a pair of lamb's eyes. So you can keep an eye on Freddie, Uncle Dominic told her. It's hard to believe that she laughed as much as they all say she did. Please? I plead. Teal, be real careful. Mimi shrugs, and my mother turns to me and says, all right. But tell your uncle that I said Frankie has to go with you on the deliveries. Understand? You bet. I say, and I can't keep the excitement out of my voice. Mimi says, bah. That boy? Everything is quiet for a moment, and I push a few mushy gray peas around on my plate. Next to me Pop Pop burps, and we all look at him at the same time. What? He says. The bills are due, Mimi tells my mother. My mother gets up and goes to the front hall. When she returns, there is an envelope in her hand. She hands it to Mimi. Mimi studies it and says, slave wages. Then she goes into the kitchen and takes down a white jar with a picture of a cow and the words milk money on it and drops the check in. It's where Mimi keeps money for grocery shopping. A perfectly good education being wasted, Mimi says. Don't start, Mother, my mother says. Tvi had a long day. But Mimi is like Scarlett O'Hara when she gets it into her head to chew something to pieces. You were the best nurse in your graduating class, Mimi says. Enough, my mother snaps. I've held my tongue too long as it is, Mimi snaps back. My mother stands up without another word and walks out of the room, slamming the door. Mimi gets up and carries her plate into the kitchen and bangs it on the counter. Scarlett O'Hara starts barking and Pop Pop says loudly, "Where's the steak?" I thought you said we were having steak. And me? I just sit there, listening to the silence. 3. Mrs. Morelli's brains. The sign outside says Felucci's Market. Best pork in neat cuts. When I open the door, a little bell rings. Look who it is, Uncle Ralphie calls from behind the long marble counter. He's wearing an apron and talking to a slender woman with stockings that have a tear near the ankle. A little boy with a grubby neck is clinging to one of her legs, and another kid with a smear of jam on his face is wrapped around her other leg. She turns, and I see the round bump of her stomach. "Mrs. Chickalows," Uncle Ralphie says grandly, "do you know my beautiful niece, Penny? My late brother Freddie's girl, God rest his soul." Mrs. Chickalows turns to me and says in a soft voice, "How do you do?" "Glad to know you," I say. Uncle Ralphie turns back to Mrs. Chickalows. "Now, you're sure you don't need any ham? I got a real nice ham in the back, just delicious." "I can't afford that," she says in the same soft voice. "Don't you worry about that, you hear me?" he says. "You just take care of these beautiful children of yours." Actually, the kids could stand a bath before anyone would call them beautiful, but that's Uncle Ralphie for you. I watch as my uncle cuts and wraps a large chunk of ham and puts it in the bag. Then he wraps up a whole chicken and sticks it in there, saying, "The bones'll make a good stock. You can get 2, maybe 3, meals out of it." He winks. "Good for the baby." She reaches into her handbag, but he just waves her away. "I'm not going anywhere." "Thank you, Mr. Felucci," she says. He beams at her. "My pleasure." She gathers up her bag and walks out of the store, the kids hanging onto her skirt. "Ralphie," Aunt Fulvia says as soon as the door closes. "What?" Uncle Ralphie says. "They're good people, Patanella Mia." Patanella Mia is Uncle Ralphie's nickname for Aunt Fulvia. He says it means my little potato. A lot of my Italian relatives have nicknames. "Good doesn't put dinner on the table," she snaps back. Uncle Ralphie's always giving people food on credit, and it drives Aunt Fulvia crazy. She's the one who really runs the store. Aunt Fulvia sits on a little stool behind the register at the door like a sentry, ringing up purchases, putting half the money in the till and half in the pocket of her skirt. Frankie says that way the government doesn't get the money. "I suppose she still hasn't paid us what she owes from last month," Aunt Fulvia says, and then leans over to look at the sleeping baby in the carriage next to her. Baby Gloria can sleep through anything, even Aunt Fulvia. Uncle Ralphie throws up his hands. "We'll be in the poorhouse at this rate," Aunt Fulvia mutters. Uncle Ralphie may be a softy, but he always gets paid back eventually. Every now and then things will just show up at the store on the back step, like a box of records or some macaroons, and Uncle Ralphie will give a low whistle and say, "Look what some little bird has left." The bell on the door rings and Jack Titleswig is standing there. Jack's 2 years ahead of me at school, and I don't know him very well, but his brother Stanley is in my grade. "If it isn't Jack Titleswig," Uncle Ralphie says. "I got your mother's order all ready." "Hi, Penny," Jack says, glancing back at me. Before I can say anything, the bell on the door rings again and my cousin Frankie bursts in, out of breath. "I'm here," he announces. "You're late," Aunt Fulvia tells him. Frankie's 12, with dark hair and brown eyes like me. Most people think we're brother and sister, which I don't mind except when he gets into trouble. His mother, Aunt Teresa, is my father's sister. "I had to help Ma with the baby," he says. Frankie's got a baby brother, Michael, who's 2 months old. "You're changing diapers now?" Aunt Fulvia asks. "Sure I am," he says, his eyes wide and innocent as an altar boy's. He's had a lot of practice. He's been an altar boy at St. Anthony's for a few years now. He likes it okay, except he sometimes falls asleep during the services. "You're full of excuses, huh, kid?" Aunt Fulvia says, and then shakes her head. "You two go pack up those deliveries." I hear Jack say to Uncle Ralphie, thanks, Mr. Felucci, and then he's gone. Say, I think she believed you, I tell Frankie. Course she did, he says with a sly wink. Frankie's father, Uncle Angelo, spent some time in jail a few years ago. He robbed a 5-and-dime store, but he wasn't a very good criminal. When he robbed the store, he also took a bunch of candy bars. He ate the candy and threw the wrappers out of his car window as he made his getaway, so the police just followed the trail of candy bar wrappers and caught him. Frankie's crazy about his father and thinks being a criminal would be neat. I worry about him sometimes. We go back to the meat locker. The store is mostly a butcher shop, but we also sell groceries and fresh produce. Over at the butcher table, Uncle Dominic is wearing a bloody apron and grinding beef into hamburger with the hand grinder. He likes working in the back. This way he doesn't have to deal with customers, which is just as well. I don't think his slippers would be good for business. Hi, Princess, Uncle Dominic says to me. What's the big buzz? I ask. The mound's looking real good for dem bums, he says. I think we've got a shot at the series. Yeah, Frankie scoffs. A shot at losing. The Dodgers have made it into the World Series before, but they always lose. The Yankees beat them last year after 7 games. It's enough to make a Bums fan cry. They'll pull through, you'll see. You gotta have faith, Uncle Dominic says, and I want to believe him. See, a long time ago, before I was born, Uncle Dominic played baseball. He was in the minor leagues and played all over Newport News, Virginia, and Greenville, North Carolina. He was invited to spring training with the Dodgers, but then something happened, and he quit baseball, and now he works for Uncle Ralphie in the store. He's still pals with a few of the fellas, and sometimes he has good gossip. I don't know why anyone would trade catching balls for chopping up meat, but then it's just one more thing I'll probably never understand. Uncle Ralphie walks into the room. You two kiddies think you can carry all this? He asks us. Penny's got to carry that hair around all day, Frankie snickers, and I smack him. Mimi thinks I pay too much attention to baseball and not enough to fashion. She got it into her head to give me a Tony Home perm at the beginning of the summer and left the solution on too long, and now my hair looks like brown cotton wool. All right, then, Uncle Ralphie says, and he lowers his glasses to the end of his nose and goes over the list with us. The bag with the pork loin is for Mrs. Giaquinto, and the one with the chickens is for Mrs. Wiederhorn. You know where they live, right? Sure, Frankie says. This bag here with the brains goes to Mrs. Morelli. Frankie rolls his eyes and says, What? She lose hers or something? I laugh. Yeah, you think this is enough? All the Italian ladies around here are crazy for strange things like calf brains and tripe, which is cow stomach, and sweetbreads, which are animal parts one don't think anyone should be putting in their mouth. They like to fry the calf brains. Actually, it all tastes okay, as long as you don't think too hard about what you're eating. You two are a pair of regular comedians, aren't you? Uncle Ralphie shakes his head. Maybe you should go work for Jack Benny. Maybe we will, Frankie says. Uncle Ralphie cuffs him lightly on the shoulder and says, Where'd you get that smart mouth, kid? Frankie says, From you, and we all laugh. Ralphie! Aunt Fulvia hollers from up front. What now, Padanella mia? Uncle Ralphie shouts back. There's a fella up here saying he ordered a whole lamb, and I don't have any record of it, Aunt Fulvia says. Uncle Ralphie groans and slaps his forehead. I forgot all about Mr. Lechstein's lamb. He gives a long-suffering sigh. You two get moving, and tell Mrs. Giaquinto I threw in some ham hocks for free. As we pass Aunt Fulvia on the way out the front door, she calls after us, You kids make sure you get paid, you hear me? We hop onto Frankie's bicycle. It has a basket in the front for the groceries. Pop Pop backed over my bicycle at the beginning of the summer. I guess I'm lucky he didn't run over me, too. I don't think he should even be driving, but just try telling him that. The first stop is to see Mrs. Giaquinto, who we know as Anne-Marie Harrison. Anne-Marie used to date our cousin Benny, who's on Uncle Angelo's side of the family. Anne-Marie and Benny would take Frankie and me to get ice cream. But then Benny went off to college last fall and Anne-Marie married some other fella, and we haven't seen her around much lately. I ring the doorbell, and after a moment the door opens a crack. "Who is it?" Anne-Marie asks in a nervous voice. "It's Penny and Frankie," I say. The door opens wider and we can see her. She's real pretty, with doe eyes like Elizabeth Taylor's. "Hi, kids," Anne-Marie says. "How you doing, Anne-Marie, I mean, Mrs. Giaquinto?" Frankie asks, blushing. "You're getting tall, Frankie," she says. "How's Benny?" "Good. He's studying to be an accountant, you know." "Yes," she says, and there's something sad in her eyes. "Uncle Ralphie put some ham hocks in the bag," I tell her. "Who you talking to, Anne-Marie?" a man's voice shouts in the background. Anne-Marie turns, and we see the purple bruise on her cheekbone. "It's just the grocery delivery, honey." Frankie's mouth drops open, and before he can close it, the body of a huge, muscled man fills the doorway. The fellow looks like a wrestler, and he's wearing a white undershirt and his eyes are bloodshot. "What do you kids want?" he barks, and I can smell the whiskey on his breath. Frankie steps in front of me and holds up the groceries. "Delivery." The fellow looks us up and down, then takes the bag. "What are you waiting for?" "A tip?" he growls. "Thanks, kids," Anne-Marie says, pressing some bills into our hands. He shoves her inside and slams the door shut. "What are you waiting for?" "A tip?" Frankie mimics angrily. I'm staring now, Frankie's sitting in back. "You see her cheek?" I ask. Frankie doesn't say anything, but his arms tighten around my stomach. Mrs. Wiederhorn's a widow, and when she opens the door she says, "Children. How are you? Are those for me? Why don't you come inside, and I'll get you some lemonade." "Thanks," we say. It's a small house, and every surface has a crocheted doily on it. She leads us into the kitchen, where a tired old cat stares at us from a cushion in the corner. "Hi there, Miss Sniff," I say to the cat. "How old's Miss Sniff, anyhow?" "Oh, very old, dear. Mr. Wiederhorn gave her to me for our 50th anniversary." "Help yourselves," she says, and pushes a plate of cookies toward us. We each take one. They're hard as rocks. I politely sip my lemonade and pocket my cookie. It rubs against the lucky bean, which I always carry with me now. Mrs. Wiederhorn is smiling at us. She doesn't seem to notice that she's still wearing her nightgown and it's lunchtime. "How are the cookies, dears?" she asks. "Real good," I say. "If you're trying to kill someone," Frankie murmurs under his breath, and I have to bite my lip to keep from laughing. "What was that, Frankie?" Mrs. Wiederhorn asks with a confused look. "I said they're better than my own mother's," he says with a bright smile. Frankie's the best liar I know. "Aren't you sweet?" she says, pleased. "Take another." "We don't want to ruin our dinner, ma'am," Frankie says quickly. "Such good children," she says, and then turns to me. "How is your father, Penny?" I stammer, "Good, thanks." "Your father is such a lovely man," she says. "He always brings me tomatoes from his garden." Next to me Frankie groans, but I elbow him in the ribs and just say, "He sure is," the ribs and just say, "He sure is." Everyone knows that Mrs. Wiederhorn's been a little forgetful since her husband died. Well, a lot forgetful, I'd say, seeing as my father's been dead for years now. She pays us and then offers us more cookies, but we say we have to go. We got more deliveries, Frankie tells her. We wait until we're out of eyeshot of her house, and then we both throw our cookies into a bush. Frankie says, she's pazza. Pazza is Italian for crazy. Yeah, but she's nice, right? I mean, the cookies and all? I guess, he says. You ever been to Mrs. Morelli's house? I ask as he pedals down the street. Nah, but I know Johnny Ferrara. He lives next to her. The Morelli house looks sort of strange, like someone started to paint it and then gave up halfway through. There's a fence around the backyard with a sign that says Bever of Dog. Looks like the Morellis can't spell in addition to not being able to paint. You got the brains? Frankie asks as we walk to the front door. Do I ever? I say, and grin. The geraniums on the front porch are dead, and a chair with a broken seat leans against a post. Frankie rings the doorbell, and a dog starts barking from behind the fence. A big dog, judging from the barking. What do they need a guard dog for? Frankie asks, looking around. Nothing here worth stealing, Abe. We should come back later, I say nervously. Is she home or what? Frankie says, standing on tiptoe and peering in through the window of the door. I can't see a thing. The gate to the fence is shaking like the dog is throwing his whole weight against it. I don't want to meet this dog. Frankie, I say, tugging his shirt, but he just ignores me and rings the bell again. Hey, Mrs. Morelli. Delivery from Felucci's, he shouts. There's a cracking sound. We turn and see the most enormous dog standing on what used to be the gate to the fence. It's a monster of a dog, Doberman German Shepherd, maybe a little Rottweiler around the face. Whatever it is, it's mean and it starts growling when it sees Frankie and me standing there on the porch. Good dog, Frankie says as we slowly back away from the door. See, we're leaving. For a minute, it seems like the dog is going to back down, but then his whole body goes still, the way the principal, Mr. Shoop, gets before he whacks you with the ruler. Run, Frankie! I shout. We run for the bicycle like our lives depend on it, which they do. Frankie jumps on, and I grab on after him, and he starts pedaling. The dog doesn't seem to care that we're off his property, because he takes off after us, drool frothing at his mouth. This dog's out for blood. Faster, Frankie! Faster! I shout as the dog lunges at my feet. The dog is a bite away from me, and I'm thinking that the lucky bean that Uncle Dominic gave me is more of an unlucky bean when Frankie shouts, "Throw him the brains." Throw him the brains! I'm still holding the bag of calf brains. Here you go, boy! I shout, flinging the bag. The last thing I see before we round the corner is the dog standing in the middle of the street gobbling up Mrs. Morelli's brains. 4. A man who can fix a toilet. I'm standing on the beach, my toes squishing in the sand. The sky is blue, and the sun shining down is hot and bright. In front of me is the ocean, the waves rolling in, one after the other, and behind me is the boardwalk, with its rides and caramel corn and hot dogs. Overhead, gulls squawk down at me like the old Italian ladies Nani plays cards with. All around me kids are running in and out of the shoals, dodging the waves. They shout and squeal, their cries mixing with the gulls and the crashing waves. But one voice stands out from all the others, calling to me. Penny! Out in the ocean, just past the next big wave, I see a dark head bobbing in the water, hair slicked back like a seal's. My father lifts his hand and waves. I wade out into the water, and when it reaches my chest, I dive into an oncoming wave. I'm a good swimmer. I learned how to swim at the lake we go Sven, so farther away my father seems to be, until he is just a speck on the horizon. Penny, my father calls to me, his voice distant now. A wave rises from the ocean and comes crash-ing down, dragging me under. His voice rings through the water, Penny. I fight my way up to the surface, but when I blink my eyes open, I'm not in the ocean. There's no sand, no blue sky, no waves. I'm lying in my bed, the sheets kicked off. Water is pouring down through the ceiling, and it doesn't smell at all like seawater. Pop pop, I yell. The toilet's leaking again. Give me the other wrench, Pop Pop says, banging around on his hands and knees on the black and white tiled bathroom floor. Which one? I ask, looking in his mess of a toolbox. There are at least 5 wrenches. What? Which wrench? I say loudly. The other one, he says. The other one. I pick one out and hand it to him. Useless, he grumbles, and starts smacking it on the toilet. The toilet is always breaking, and lucky for me, it's right over my bed. Pop Pop refuses to hire a plumber. He always says, any man worth his salt can fix a toilet. Mimi is in the kitchen when I go downstairs. Did he fix it? She asks. I shake my head. That man is so stubborn, she says under her breath. I swear, he'd sit on the Titanic while it was sinking just because he wouldn't want to give up his seat. There's a loud bang followed by a curse, and we both look up. Mimi shakes her head. I'd better go up there before he tears apart the whole bathroom. Go see if the milk has been delivered yet. Mimi likes to put the top cream from the milk into her coffee, and after dealing with Pop Pop, she's going to need some coffee. I go out to the porch just in time to see Mr. Mulligan, the milkman, coming up the walk carrying 2 bottles of milk. Hi, Mr. Mulligan, I say. Hi, Penny, he says back. I think we're in for a hot one today. Mr. Mulligan is going bald and only has a tuft of red hair left, like Woody Woodpecker. He's from an Irish family and he's got real pale skin. We get a lot of delivery men coming here milk, bread, vegetables, but Mr. Mulligan's the nicest. He's got a good sense of humor. Let's see, you have 4 bottles of milk, right? He asks, which is what he always asks. It's sort of a joke with us, because we get the same thing every week. Not very exciting, but there it is. 4 bottles, I say. You a big milk drinker? He asks. I hate milk, I say. But Mimi makes me drink it. He laughs. See you next week. After fixing the toilet, Pop Pop announces that we're going to paint Mimi's desk. Lately, Pop Pop's been painting all the furniture in the house black. Mimi thinks our old furniture will look nicer with black lacquer paint. She got the idea from her friend Mrs. Hart, who's painted all her furniture and woodwork with black lacquer paint and says it's very stylish. I can't say that I like it very much. You kind of feel like you're in a funeral parlor ready for some fancy painting? Pop Pop asks. We drag Mimi's desk out to the summer porch. First we sand the desk so that the paint will take, and then we start painting. It's not exactly the best day to be painting, it's about 100 degrees out. The whole time we paint, Pop Pop keeps up a running commentary on how I'm doing everything wrong. You're using too much paint, he'll say, or asterisk, don't they teach you anything in that school of yours? Scarlett O'Hara is sitting on the porch, looking out at the squirrels in the backyard. All at once a large puddle forms at her feet. Scarlett! I say, but it's too late. She blinks up at me and wags her tail. Out of here, Mutt, Pop Pop says, holding the door open and glaring at Scarlett O'Hara. Go on, Scarlett, I say, and she bolts out after a squirrel. Scarlett loves chasing other animals. Any time she senses another creature, she goes after it. Once she chased a chipmunk all around the house before scaring it into running up the chimney, which Mother didn't think was very clever but I thought was pretty funny, especially when the chipmunk came back down all covered in soot and ran around the parlor. "Pop Pop," I ask, "do you think something's wrong with Scarlett O'Hara?" "She's an old dog," he says. Scarlett O'Hara's almost 15, which I guess is old in dog years, although she sure doesn't act old. My father gave my mother Scarlett O'Hara when she was just a puppy, but now she's my dog. Mother says that when I was a baby, Scarlett would bark whenever I cried. What does that have to do with tinkling on the floor? I ask. He groans and stands up. When you get old, sometimes your innards stop working the way they should. Does that mean she's going to die? We're all going to die, he says. I'm planning on dropping dead next week. That way I don't have to wear a necktie to that social with your grandmother. We paint together for a while, and then Mimi comes out to the porch with meatloaf sandwiches and lemonade. I don't like meatloaf to begin with, and Mimi's meatloaf is dry and crusty. Pop Pop starts right in on his sandwich, but when I try to take a bite of mine, my stomach gives a little flip. All this talk of dying is getting to me. Either that or it's the meatloaf. It's hard to say. I pull the lucky bean out of my pocket. It doesn't look very lucky. I think of my dream. Would my father have died if he'd had this bean? I know he got sick and was taken to the hospital and died there, but no one on either side of the family ever really talks about what was wrong with him. Pop Pop, what did my father die from? I ask. What? What? He sputters. I just thought you might know, is all. How would I know? He asks with a huff. Do I look like a doctor? Before I can say anything, the squirrel Scarlett O'Hara's been chasing runs in through the open screen door and starts racing around the enclosed porch, with Scarlett right behind it. Scarlett streaks by the desk, smearing black paint all along her side. Penny, get that blasted dog out of here. Pop Pop hollers. Scarlett O'Hara, I call. I lunge for her, but she outmaneuvers me, and my foot catches in the rug. And that's when I go tumbling headfirst right into the can of paint. Oh, Penny, Mimi says with a sigh. We're in the upstairs bathroom, hers and Pop Pop's. Leaky toilet aside, I've always liked it better. It's bigger than mine and Mother's. The bathtub has great big claw feet and it's deep, so deep that you can almost disappear in it when there are bubbles. Mimi's looking over my shoulder into the mirror on the wall. One chunk of my hair has a swipe of black paint on it that even the turpentine won't take out. Mimi is going to shave down Scarlett O'Hara where she got paint on her fur, but she doesn't know what to do with me. You have such pretty hair, she says, touching my curls. Your mother's hair looked the same way when she was a girl. It was burned by a perm? I want to say. Instead, I say, maybe I can try soaking it for a while. She runs a big bath, pours in some bubbles, and I slip out of my clothes and get into the tub, leaning back against the high white rim. I close my eyes as Mimi soaps up my hair, her fingers strong. It feels wonderful. Can we make ice cream tonight? I ask. Butter pecan? I love pecans. I could eat pecans on anything: ice cream, cookies, hot dogs, you name it. I don't see why not, Mimi says. Mimi is like this, sometimes she's tough as old nails and sometimes she's a real softie. You know, Mimi says, when we lived in Key West, we made sugar apple ice cream. That was always my favorite. Can you imagine when I learned there were no sugar apple trees up north? It almost broke my heart. Mimi grew up in Key West, Florida. Pop Pop met her when he was in the army. Mimi's always talking about how she misses Key West, and Pop Pop always says that it was the worst place he ever lived, nothing but scorpions, and that he couldn't wait to get back to New Jersey. Is the paint coming out? I ask hopefully. I'm sorry, Penny, she says. I get out of the tub and put a towel on and stand still while Mimi cuts. When she's done, it looks like someone was drawing me and then erased part out. I sure hope it grows back fast. Maybe it's because I've been thinking about my father all day, but I just blurt out, "Do I look like my father?" Mimi hesitates and then says, "You look like him around the eyes." "You have his eyes." "I do?" "Yes," she says finally. "Your father had beautiful eyes." My bedroom was once a closet, so I guess you could say it's cozy. It wasn't planned that way. My mother and father bought this house when they were first married. But then he died and my mother needed help with me, so Mimi and Pop Pop sold their own house and moved in here. They converted the upstairs into their half and the downstairs into ours. My room used to be the pantry, and on a damp day it still smells like cinnamon. All that fits in my room is a bed and a small dressing table. I keep my clothes in a closet in Mother's room. I got to decorate the room myself, and at the time I really liked poodles, so there's poodle wallpaper and a poodle headboard and the lamp has a poodle base. I even have a matching poodle bedspread that Mimi made. Lately I've been thinking of asking Mother if I can redecorate. I'm a little tired of the poodles. But now as I lie in my bed, I'm thinking maybe I should ask if I can get a window while I'm at it. It's not too bad in the winter, but on nights like this, it's just awful. It's hot as an oven. Even though I'm wearing the thinnest cotton pajama set I have, I'm still sweating up a storm. The fan that's propped in the doorway isn't helping one bit. Meme's the only one not bothered by hot nights like this. Finally I give up and grab my pillow and head out to the summer porch. It's still hot, but at least there's a stingy breeze here. Pop Pop's already on the wicker couch, snoring away, so I take the swing. Scarlett O'Hara must have forgiven him for the paint job, because she's curled up behind his knees. She looks sort of naked and embarrassed without her hair. I know just how she feels. After Mimi butchered my hair, I went over to see Frankie. I don't see Frankie as much during the school year because he goes to Catholic school and I go to public school. But Frankie's pretty much my best friend. Not that I have a lot of friends lately, thanks to Veronica Goodman. I ran into her outside the sweet shop with a bunch of other girls from school. She burst out laughing when she saw my horrible hair. "That the new style, Penny?" she asked. The other girls laughed too. I wanted to disappear right into the ground. Veronica and I used to be friends. In fact, we were good friends until last fall, when everything changed. See, my Uncle Ralphie owns the building next to Felucci's Market, and he rents it out. Veronica's father wanted to rent the space to put in a shoe store, but Uncle Ralphie rented it to someone else. Uncle Ralphie said it wasn't personal, the fella he rented it to could pay more. But I guess Mr. Goodman didn't see it that way, because he got angry and went and called my Uncle Ralphie some bad names for being Italian. Ever since that happened, Veronica has been mean to me, and most of the other girls have ignored me. Veronica's pretty popular. The scent of black paint swirls in my nose as I lie there looking out at the dark night. These are the times I think about my father the most. What is he doing up there in heaven? Is he just sitting on a cloud, or is he listening to Bing Crosby? Is he dancing the jitterbug? Eating an ice cream sundae? If I could ask Mother one question about my father, it would be what he thought of me. Did he think I was funny? Or smart? Did he love me? I hear a soft step and look up to see my mother standing there wearing a nice dress and hat. Her cheeks are glowing. She went out to dinner and to play bridge with her friend Connie. They've been going out together a lot lately, and I think it's good for her. She seems happier. "Too hot in your room?" she whispers. I nod. Pop Pop beat me to the couch. "He's fast for an old fella, huh?" she says with a laugh. Scoot over. She sits down, unpins her hat, and then blinks as she takes in my head. What happened to your hair? I got paint on it, I say. Scarlett O'Hara whimpers as if she doesn't like to be left out, and I say, Scarlett O'Hara did, too. My mother just shakes her head. How was dinner? Beef stroganoff. I wrinkle my nose. There's lots of leftovers. She laughs. No, thank you. We made ice cream, I tell her. Butter pecan. Want some? Now that I'll take, she says, and I go inside and get her a bowl. She takes a spoonful and makes an appreciative sound. Did you have fun with Connie? I ask. I had a lovely time, she says, and smiles to herself. My mother leans against me and kicks the floor, which sets the swing in motion. We stare out at the night, the fireflies dancing in the trees. Pop Pop snorts in his sleep and turns over. There's a small hissing sound, and Scarlett O'Hara whimpers and jumps off the couch and trots over to us. Mother, I whisper, wrinkling my nose. Yes, she says. What's that smell? I think it's Pop Pop, she whispers back, and we both giggle. 5. The luckiest fella ever. The first difference between Mimi's kitchen and my Italian grandmother's is the smell. My grandmother Felucci's kitchen smells delicious, like basil and tomatoes and garlic. It makes your mouth water. The second difference is that Nani's kitchen is downstairs in the basement. There's a stove and a refrigerator and a big sink and a wooden cutting table and pots and pans. In the corner is a wringer washing machine. It's usually my job to help with the laundry if I'm around, same as at my house. There's a regular modern kitchen upstairs that my Aunt Gina uses. Uncle Polly bought the house from my grandmother, but she still lives here and everyone still calls it her house. Nani doesn't approve of the way Aunt Gina cooks, and so she demanded a kitchen of her own in the basement. At first Uncle Polly said no, but then he put one in to keep the peace. Uncle Polly spends a lot of time keeping the peace between the women in his life. I should have been a diplomat, he always says, shaking his head. Least I'd be getting paid. When I walk down the rickety basement stairs, Nani's back is to me. She's tiny, maybe 80 pounds, and her legs are like two thin black stocking toothpicks poking out from underneath her black dress. I've never actually seen her in anything but black. Even her winter coat is black Persian lamb. Hi, Nani, I say. Nana is Italian for grandmother. The story goes that I couldn't say Nana when I was little, so I called her Nani, and it just sort of stuck. Now everyone calls her that. Nani turns around, takes one look at me, and bursts into tears. I sigh. I'm used to it, I guess. She cries every time she sees me. My father, Alfredo, who everyone called Freddie, was her favorite, the firstborn son. He was the first person in the family to go to college, and he became a newspaper writer. Everyone was so proud of him, especially Nani. His death is the worst thing that ever happened to the family. A real tragedy. Which is why Nani wears black and cries every time she sees me. Tesoro mio, Nani says, wiping away her tears with a black lace handkerchief. She calls me Resoro mio, which means my treasure. Nani doesn't speak English very well. I take my usual spot on the stool by the table, and she pushes a plate at me and says in her thick Italian accent, too skinny. Eat. Eat. Sitting on the plate is something Nani calls pastiera, a dish made with spaghetti and eggs and cheese and black pepper that's baked and served cold. It's one of my favorites, so Nani cooks it all the time for me. I watch as her small, gnarled fingers knead dough for fresh macaroni. All the Italian women in my family make their own macaroni. Nani carefully rolls out the dough and then takes a sharp knife and cuts it into long strips and hangs it to dry on a wooden rack. Sometimes she lets me help her make it. Nani wipes her hands on her apron. We see your papa now, yes? She says this like it's a question, but I know it's not. Uncle Polly is already waiting for us in the upstairs hallway. There's my ladies, Uncle Polly says with a broad smile. My Uncle Polly's a big, round fella. Probably because he has to eat 2 dinners every night, one cooked by Aunt Gina and one cooked by Nani. Nani ties a black lace scarf around her head. Paolo, she says, and points to her gloves. Paolo is Polly's name in Italian. Here you go, Ma, Uncle Polly says, handing her the black gloves. Freddie, Nani says, waving at the wall in the hallway where there's a shrine to my dead father. There's a dozen photographs of him, at his first Holy Communion, at his graduation from high school, one with his arm around Uncle Dominic when they were young, the two of them grinning like they've got some big secret. Your father was a great man, Penny. Real good fella. Best brother ever, Uncle Polly says. I've heard this a million times. And I know the next part, too. Nani starts crying. My Freddie good boy. That's right, Uncle Polly says, a fat tear rolling down his cheek. Regular party in here, a voice says from the top of the stairs. It's Aunt Gina. She's wearing a white silk top with a fitted skirt and holding a cigarette. With her bleached blonde hair, she looks glamorous, like Marilyn Monroe. Hi, Aunt Gina, I say. Hi, doll, she says, walking down the steps, eyeing Nani standing by the door with her scarf and gloves. Honey, I thought you said you were taking me shopping today. Paolo, Nani says. Uncle Polly lowers his voice. I gotta take Ma to see Freddie. The cemetery, Aunt Gina says, her voice dry. Uncle Polly nods uncomfortably. Sounds like a real swell time, Aunt Gina says, tapping her cigarette. Nani mutters something in Italian and my eyes widen. I know that curse word. What's that, Mother Felucci? Aunt Gina asks loudly. Aunt Gina doesn't know much Italian, and she always thinks that Nani is trying to insult her, which is probably true because Nani doesn't like Aunt Gina. I personally think Uncle Polly is going bald trying to survive in a house with 2 women who don't get along. Frankie walks in the front door. Francuccio, Nani says, and kisses him on both cheeks and hugs him tight until he wiggles free. Francuccio means little Frankie. Where's everybody going? He asks, taking in the scene. The cemetery, I whisper. Oh, swell. Frankie says loudly. I love the cemetery. Aunt Gina taps her foot. Ready, Ma? Uncle Polly says nervously. We better get going. Aunt Gina glares at Uncle Polly, but he takes Nani by the elbow and practically shoves her out the door, saying, See ya later, honey. As the screen door slams behind us, Aunt Gina shouts, I tell you, the only way to get someone to pay attention to you in this family is by dying. Penny, look at this one, Frankie says in an excited voice, pointing at an old gravestone that looks like it's going to fall over any minute. It's got a skull on it. What'd think? Could be, I say. Definitely, he says. Get a load of the name. Howard Pfeiffer. That's a criminal's name if I ever heard one. Frankie likes coming to the cemetery because he heard there are a lot of criminals buried here. See, he reads crime comic books, and he thinks that they're true. His favorite is Crime Does Not Pay. He won't read real books, but he'll read comic books. Some of the graves have patriotic red, white, and blue flags stuck on them. These are the graves of fallen soldiers. A lot of men from our town were killed in the World Wars. My father's gravestone is marble, imported all the way from Italy, where we have lots of relatives. Uncle Nunzio had it made by a master carver, some cousin who does everyone's stones. It's the only gravestone with an Italian name in the whole row. Alfredo Christopher Felucci. There's a Catholic cemetery across the street, and that's where my grandfather Felucci is buried. My father's buried here because my mother hadn't converted to Catholicism by the time he died, so they weren't allowed to bury him in the Catholic cemetery. Nani's still upset about how's it going, Freddie? Uncle Paulie says to the ground. Uncle Paulie always talks like my father's going to crawl right out of his grave and go off and smoke a cigar with him. Nani gets down on her knees and starts picking weeds, although it's already the neatest grave in the entire cemetery. The groundskeeper, an old skinny fella named Lou, takes extra special care of my father's plot. Uncle Ralphie sends him a ham at Christmas. Not to mention we're here just about every week. To be honest, I hate it. I just do it because it makes Nani happy. Real nice day for a visit, huh, Penny? Uncle Paulie says, puffing away on a cigar. I guess dead people don't mind the smell. But Uncle Paulie's right. It's a perfect day, not too hot, and I start thinking that maybe there are worse ways of passing time than being here in Shady Grove Cemetery. It's a peaceful cemetery, with trees everywhere. Not a bad place to be dead, if you ask me. My father's grave is sandwiched between Stuart Brandt, a young soldier, and Cora Lamb, a girl who died when she was 9. Stuart's stone says, Stuart Brandt. Valiant soldier and beloved son, he gave his life for our freedom March 19, 1923 June 6, 1944. Cora has a marble sculpture on her grave, a baby angel with short stubby wings. One time when we were visiting my father's grave, I met Cora Lamb's mother. She was an old lady with gray hair. I asked her how Cora died. The flu, said Mrs. Lamb. I think about Cora Lamb sometimes. Did she like butter pecan ice cream and read the funny pages? Did she fight with her mother about what dress to wear? Did she have a favorite toy? A fancy doll? See, I think it's important to know someone's story. My uncles tell me stories about my father all the time. Uncle Dominic likes to tell the story of how he and my father went into New York City when they were just teenagers and got pickpocketed. So my father stood on the corner of 42nd Street and Broadway and sang every Bing Crosby song he knew until they made enough money for the train fare home. Uncle Paulie always tells the one about how my father once bet $20 on a pony named Lucky Duck at the racetrack and won and bought everyone in their section a bag of peanuts. My grandmother is crying. Freddie, Nani says, patting the stone. So wrong, what happened to my boy? Those bad men. Non è giusto. Non è giusto. What's she talking about? I ask Uncle Paulie. What bad men, why bad me taking about, aka nail Paul. Uncle Paulie clears his throat. The doctors who treated him. She blames them for what happened. You know how she is about hospitals. Nani hates hospitals. She cut her finger once chopping garlic and refused to go to the hospital. Everyone thought she was gonna lose the finger, but she didn't. What did my father die from anyway, Uncle Paulie? I ask. Pneumonia, he says quickly. Real bad case of pneumonia. Frankie sidles up to us. Pneumonia? That's a boring way to die. How about a shot to the head? Or maybe knifed in a back alley? Shut up, kid, Uncle Paulie says. Last time I bring you here. If my Italian family didn't talk about my father, I wouldn't know a thing, because my mother won't tell me anything. All she's ever said is that he liked Bing Crosby, and honestly, what does that tell you about a person? Nothing, that's what. There's a box under my mother's bed that I found by accident. Scarlett O'Hara has a habit of stealing my socks and then hiding them, usually under beds, so I was looking for a sock when I found a pink department store box. There wasn't much in it, a few cards, a dried corsage, some shells, a bunch of photographs. One of the photographs was of my mother when she was younger, maybe 20. She was wearing a bathing suit on the beach and laughing at the camera. She looked like a completely different person, so happy and carefree. At the very bottom of the box was a picture postcard from Atlantic City. It was of a hotel, the Chalfont Haddon Hall, in the very center of things on the beach and boardwalk. The note was in my mother's handwriting, Deke's mother and daddy. Here we are on our honeymoon and having a grand time. Our room is beautiful and it looks out to the Orine. The weather is clear and cool and our appetites are large. Love to all. Ellie and Freddie. Scribbled beneath this in my father's handwriting was a little note that said, I am the luckiest fella ever. I've never told anyone about the postcard, not even Frankie, and I tell him everything. We'd better start back, Uncle Polly says, helping Nani up. As we drive down Heavenly Lane of Shady Grove Cemetery, I'm proud that my father was the clever brother who sang for the train fare and the swell fella who bought peanuts for everybody after his pony won. But more than just about anything in the whole wide world, it's the man who wrote I am the luckiest fella ever on that postcard who I wish I could have met. 5 uncles, uncles everywhere. My mother always says that even though my father's family is full of men, don't be fooled. It's the women who really run things. It's Sunday, and that means dinner at Nani's house. On Saturdays I have dinner at home, which is usually a dry pot roast and burned potatoes because Mimi leaves it in too long. I don't know when this started, me going over to my father's family on Sundays. It's been this way forever. And it's always just me, never my mother or Mimi or Pop. My Italian family starts their dinner in the afternoon, so I go over after lunchtime. Everyone's sitting in the upstairs kitchen around the table and the room smells like lemons. They put the lemons in the decanters of homemade Chianti. An Italian opera is playing on the record player. My Italian family is crazy about opera music. All the uncles are here: Uncle Polly, Uncle Ralphie, Uncle Nunzio, who's married to Aunt Rosa and lives next door in a house that has 2 stone lions guarding the front door, and Frankie's dad, Uncle Angelo. They're my real uncles. Nani had 6 kids: my father, Uncle Dominic, Uncle Polly, Aunt Teresa, Uncle Ralphie, and Aunt Rosa. Then there's my father's cousins, who Frankie and me still call our uncles. There's Uncle Sally, whose real name is Salvatore, and Uncle Chick, who's in the ironworks business, and Uncle Louis, who raises fig trees in his backyard, and my other Uncle Louis, who everyone calls Little Louis because he's younger even though he weighs 300 pounds and isn't exactly little. In fact, I think he could stand to go on a diet. Pretty much everyone is related somehow. I don't think anyone's not Italian, except me, and even I'm half. It's times like these that I wish I understood Italian. But they won't teach it to any of us kids because they say it's our job to speak English and be good Americans. Aunt Gina says the reason they don't want us to learn Italian is that during World War II, Italy was on the wrong side, with Germany and Japan, and so the Italians who were in America got in trouble for it. She says that even Joe DiMaggio's father had problems, and if Joe DiMaggio's pop can get in trouble, you got to watch it, and this is why my relatives always speak English in public. But Frankie thinks the real reason they don't want us to know Italian is so that they can have secret conversations. Frankie and me know all the good curse words anyway. There's our golden girl, Uncle Nunzio says. He's wearing a real nice suit, charcoal gray with a thin pinstripe. It looks like something a Hollywood movie star would wear. Uncle Nunzio owns a clothing factory, which is probably why he's such a snappy dresser. He's not handsome like Uncle Dominic, but there's something about him. He has this way of looking at you, like he's looking right into your soul. I don't think too many people cross Uncle Nunzio. Hi, Uncle Nunzio, I say. How are you, sweetheart? He asks. Good. He gestures to a plate of fresh Italian pastries. Eat something. Thanks, I say, and pick up a sfogliatella. Sfogliatelle are pastry with ricotta cheese inside. It sounds funny, but they're really good. Aunt Gina walks in with Aunt Rosa, who likes to pinch me on the cheeks, and Aunt Teresa, who always looks worn out, and our cousin sister Laura, who's a nun. This is how it is here, people coming and going. There's always a pot of something bubbling on the stove, a glass of Chianti being poured, macaroni in the oven. They think nothing of playing Italian card games like Scopa or Briscola until 2 in the morning. I don't think my mother has ever even been up until 2 in the morning, let alone had someone arrive at midnight to join a game. I slip away and go look for Uncle Dominic. He doesn't like big gatherings, even if it is family, and he usually hides out in his car. The car's empty, so I go around back and find him with the girls, which is what he calls his dogs. As long as I've known him, Uncle Dominic's had dogs, and they're always dachshunds. I call them wiener dogs because they look like the wieners you get at the boardwalk. He's got 2 right now, Queenie V and Queenie 6. Queenies 1, 2, 2, and 4 are dead and buried somewhere in the backyard. He names the boy dogs King, but there've only been 2 Kings so far. A couple of years ago Uncle Dominic built the dogs a pen so that they can tear around and play and not get run over in the street, which is what happened to the dead Queenies and the Kings, too. When I get to the pens, Uncle Dominic's talk ing to one of the dogs. "How's my favorite girl?" he's saying, like the dog is a regular person. Uncle Dominic talks to the dogs a lot, and he cooks special for them. When you come right down to it, I think he prefers them to people. He says dogs are nicer. Also, they don't care if he wears his slippers. Nani loves the Queenies too. She's always spraying the fancy perfume Uncle Polly buys her, Taboo, on them. She speaks to them in Italian, and they're probably the only dogs I know that can understand 2 languages. "I thought I was your favorite girl," I say. He looks startled for a minute and then, realizing it's just me, relaxes. "Hi, princess. Taught them any new tricks?" Uncle Dominic says wiener dogs are real smart. I'm not too sure about this, though. They can't be that smart if they're always chasing cars and getting run over. "I'm working on something," he says. "I'll show you when it's ready." Aunt Rosa pokes her head out the door, the sun catching in her thick, dark hair. "What are you 2 up to out here?" She's my father's youngest sister, the baby of the family. When she was a teenager, she was always running away to New York City. My uncles would have to go and find her and bring her home. The story goes that her brothers got tired of tracking her down and so they sent their friend Nunzio to go get her, and when he brought her back, they were engaged. Uncle Nunzio must be some kind of a smooth talker. "Just playing with the Queenies," I say. "Well, come on in. Dinner's ready," she says. "Go on," Uncle Dominic says. He never takes meals with us, which, believe me, is saying something in an Italian family. He's like a shadow, he just drifts in and out with nobody paying much attention to him, except maybe me. Pretty soon I'm sitting at the long dining room table with the lacy tablecloth that Nani made herself. We're all crammed in and everyone's talking at once and laughing and arguing, and it's real loud. Baby Enrico, who's Aunt Rosa's baby, waddles over to my chair. He's almost 2 and is real mischievous. But he's got the best smile that you've ever seen. He holds his arms up to me and says, "Carry you. Carry you." What he's trying to say is carry me, but he thinks it's carry you, since people ask him, "You want me to carry you?" "Come here," I say, and pick him up and put him on my lap. He fishes around on my plate, takes a piece of bread and gnaws on it, and then tries to stick it in my mouth. "Eat," he orders. He's Italian already. Frankie and me used to get a lot of attention until all the baby cousins started showing up. In addition to Enrico, there's Uncle Ralphie and Aunt Fulvia's baby, Gloria, and Frankie's baby brother, Michael, and Aunt Rosa's pregnant again. I like the baby cousins, especially Enrico, but I hate changing smelly diapers. Dinner is a big production here, and it takes hours. We usually start off with some soup, and then we have macaroni, and then some meat, like breast of veal or braciole, which is braised beef rolls, with vegetables and potatoes. After that there's salad, just lettuce with oil and vinegar, no tomatoes or anything else. Then there's a break, and all the men go drink anisette in the parlor or play bocce ball in the backyard while the women sit around eating raw fennel. Then comes coffee and nuts and fruit and cordials. After that, we'll sometimes have a snack. I start in on the soup, which has escarole and bits of egg. The food I eat here is completely different than at home. Here, food is everything. They even call the food by different names. They call pasta macaroni. At home we say it's tomato sauce, and here they call it gravy. Why don't you come down to the factory, Penny? Uncle Nunzio says to me. Pick out your fall coat. The new styles are in. I get a new coat every year from Uncle Nunzio. I also get a lot of other clothes, muffs and hats and matching skirts and jackets. I never have to have shop in stores like regular people. I just tell Uncle Nunzio what I like, and he has one of the ladies sew it up for me. Okay, I say. Thanks. Nani walks into the room, carrying a huge casserole dish. Nani and my aunts cook enough to feed an army. Just in case people show up is what they always say. Today she's made lasagna, which is my favorite. Looks good, I say as she puts a large portion on my plate. She always puts too much on my plate and gets upset when I don't eat it all. It doesn't matter how much I eat, I can never eat enough to make her happy. After dinner the uncles break out their instruments and start playing. There's a trumpet, a mandolin, a violin, and the piano. They're like their own band. Soon everyone's singing and dancing and loud, and it's a regular party. It's nearly 6 o'clock by the time I leave. Before I go, everyone kisses me goodbye on both cheeks, something we never do in my family. They also slip money into my hands, rolled up $1 bills. I kind of like this tradition. I'll drive you home, Uncle Dominic says. I'm perfectly capable of walking home by myself, but he never lets me. He's almost as bad as my mother. At my house he idles at the curb, watching to make sure I get an okay. I give him a little wave. I go into the parlor, and for a moment I think everybody's asleep or something. But they're in the dining room eating dinner. They're so quiet, I hardly know they're there. The next morning I borrow Frankie's bike and go to Uncle Nunzio's factory. The clothing factory is on the other side of town. It's a big brick building that looks just like every other big brick building. During the war the factory made uniforms for the military, but now it makes regular clothes, mostly awfully nice wool coats. You can hear the sewing machines buzzing even before you go in. Carolina, Uncle Nunzio's secretary, is sitting at her desk outside his office. She's wearing a stylish suit with a fake flower corsage. Hi, Hon, your uncle's on the phone. He'll be done in a minute, she says. I sit on a bench to wait. It's hot inside, real hot, even with the fans going, and I feel sorry for all the ladies at their sewing machines, row after row, sweating away. Most of them are from Italy. You want a butterscotch? Carolina asks, hold ing out a tin. Sure, I say, taking one. How's your mother? She asks. She and my mom went to school together. She's good, thanks. You look more like her every day, she says. I sure hope she didn't have this hairdo when she was my age. Carolina laughs. Oh, your mother could have pulled off that hairdo. She was the most daring girl I knew. Penny from heaven, my mother was daring? Honest to goodness, I can't picture my mom like this at all. She won't go out of the house without an umbrella and scarf even on a clear day. Would I lie to you? Carolina says with a laugh. Our senior year, she helped steal our school rival's mascot, a goat. A goat! The door to the office opens, and Uncle Nunzio is standing there. "It's the little princess," he says with a broad smile. "Hi, Uncle Nunzio," I say. "Ask Alberto to come in for a minute, Carolina?" Uncle Nunzio says. A short elderly man with gray hair and a tape measure hanging around his neck comes into the office. "Alberto's been my uncle's tailor forever." "Alberto," Uncle Nunzio says, "Penny needs a new coat." "Bellissima," he says to me, which I know means most beautiful girl in Italian. Alberto leads me out of the office and over to a workroom in the factory where the coats are stored. There are all sorts of coats with shiny buttons and fur collars and matching gloves. 68 uncles everywhere and everything. I spot a nubby wool coat that's cranberry red with a rabbit fur collar and rabbit fur around the wrists. "It has a matching muff and that one, please," I say. Alberto has me try it on, but it's a little long in the sleeves. He takes the coat over to a sewing machine and fixes it while I wait. Uncle Nunzio is in his office looking at some papers when I come in, the coat over my arm. "Got one?" he asks, looking up. "Yeah," I say, holding up the coat. "Thanks. You take the muff, too?" I shake my head. "I got the hat." "Take the muff," he says. "It's rabbit. The best." He goes to the door and calls to Carolina, "Get Penny the muff, okay?" "You got it, Mr. Rosati," she says. "What about your mother?" he asks me. "She need a new coat?" "Sure," I say, although I know she doesn't like gifts from my father's family for some reason. Maybe she's worried about getting more lamb's eyes. We go back to the coat room. He waves at a rack in the corner. "Pick something out," he says. I look through the coats. They're all so beautiful, trimmed in mink and rabbit and lynx. But it's the reddish fox stole that catches my eye. It will go with my mother's hair, and it's something she would never pick out for herself in 100 years. The fur gleams in the dim light, and the little teeth of the fox are bared and angry looking, like it's not too happy to be a stole. The coat and muff and hat go in the basket of the bike, but I wear the fox stole draped around my neck the whole way home, feeling like a movie star. I imagine my mother wearing it, looking glamorous, although I'm not sure where she would go. Usually she spends her Friday nights listening to the radio with me and Pop Pop and Mimi. When I was younger, she used to date. They were always good-looking fellas, but they never came back after she introduced them to me. I guess they didn't want kids. Mother hasn't dated in a long time, but I keep hoping that maybe SH and Uncle Dominic will get together. He's handsome and he already likes me, and I'm sure I could work on the living in the car and get him to wear a pair of shoes. When I get home, Frankie's waiting on the front porch. "Couldn't take hearing the baby cry no more," he tells me. Baby Michael's real colicky, and I guess no one's been getting much sleep at Frankie's house these days. He sees the first stole and asks, "Fancy new coat?" It irritates Frankie that the uncles, the tour, are always giving me presents, even though he knows it's because my father is dead and everybody feels sorry for me. "It's not for me. It's for Mother," I say. "This one's for me." I hold up the red coat. "Little princess," he mimics. "You'll look like Red Riding Hood in that getup." "Ah, shut up, Frankie," I say. Frankie follows me into the house. It's dark and quiet. "Mimi? Pop Pop?" I call out, and then I find the note on the table. "Penny, gone shopping. Put the tuna casserole in the oven at 4:30. Love, Mimi, you want to stay over for dinner tonight?" Meme made a tuna casserole, I tell Frankie. He considers it and then shakes his head. "Nah, I want to survive the summer." Frankie's brought his baseball mitts, so we go out to the backyard. He wants to practice fielding, and he has me throw him ground balls. After a bunch of grounders, I throw the ball high in the air. I tell ya, it's a crying shame, you being a girl, he says. That arm of yours is like a cannon. Frankie's always trying to get me to play on his team. Sometimes I do if they don't have enough boys. I mean it, Frankie says. You got talent. Must be Uncle Dom's blood. Long as I don't end up living in a car, I say. If he was still playing ball, he wouldn't be living in the car, he says. Why do you think he quit, anyway? I ask. Beats me, he says. Maybe he wasn't good enough. I gotta use the can. I gotta use the can is his favorite expression. He heard Benny say it, and now he says it every chance he can get. It sounds a lot ruder than tinkle. After a while I get to wondering where Frankie has wandered to. I walk into the house and hear the sound of water leaking. I go into my bedroom and look up and see water coming through the ceiling. By the time I get to the upstairs bathroom, Frankie's already put every towel on the floor and water's still coming out of the toilet. What did you do? I demand. Nothing, he says. Why'd you use this bathroom? I don't know. I like it. It's bigger, he says. You gotta make it stop. I say. Get me a wrench, he orders, just like Pop Pop. I run downstairs and fetch the toolbox. By the time I get back upstairs, the leak has slowed to a trickle. This stupid toilet, I say. Here, gimme that, Frankie says, and grabs a wrench and looks behind the toilet. I think this is the thing that stops the water. You sure you know what you're doing? I ask. Sure, he says. No problem. He twists something and I hear a crack, and suddenly water starts spurting everywhere. A regular flood. Frankie! I shout. It ain't my fault, he shouts back. My mind is whirling. I can't call my mother, because she's at work, and Mimi and Pop Pop are shopping. I'm calling Uncle Dominic, I say, and the minute the words leave my mouth, I know it's the right thing to do. I call the store and Aunt Fulvia picks up. What's the matter, hon? She asks. I gotta talk to Uncle Dominic, I say in a rush. It's an emergency. Uncle Dominic gets on, and I explain to him what's happened. He pulls up and gets out of his car a few moments later, carrying a toolbox. With Felux Market, he's a sight to see. Apron from it won't stop, I say. I don't know what to do. Frankie's standing at the top of the stairs. You do this? Uncle Dominic asks. What? Frankie says. It just broke. It's always breaking. Tell him. He's right, I say. When we reach the bathroom, Uncle Dominic takes one look behind the toilet and shakes his head. Stay put. I gotta go down to the basement. Frankie and me hold our breath, waiting, and suddenly the water stops. It stopped. I yell. Uncle Dominic comes back up a minute later. What did you do? Frankie asks him. I just shut off the water, he says. Geez, Frankie says. That was it? I could have done that. Frankie, Uncle Dominic says, I don't think plumbing's your calling. Frankie waves his hand. As if I'd want to be a plumber. Uncle Dominic gets down on his hands and knees by the toilet and does this and that. Then he goes back downstairs and turns the water back on. When he comes back up, he says, that should do it. Is it okay to use? I ask. Uncle Dominic flushes experimentally. There, no flood. You're safe, he says. Uncle Dominic and Frankie and me mop up all the water, and when we're finished, it looks good as new. Well, aside from the rugs being soaking wet and all the towels. We drag everything outside to hang on the clothesline. Come on, Frankie, Uncle Dominic says. I'll give you a lift home. Thanks, Uncle Dominic, I say, and I mean it. You saved my life. Anything for you, princess, he says with a small smile. As I lie in bed that night, I stare at my new red coat hanging on the back of the door. It's beautiful, probably the most beautiful coat I've ever owned when it comes right down to it. But when I hear the toilet flush above me, I know which uncle gave me the best present today. The translator. My mother's laughter wakes me up. It's a light, happy laugh, a sound I'm not used to hearing. I push back the covers and open the door to my room and go out to the parlor. I can see my mother through the screen door. She's standing on the porch talking to Mr. Mulligan. She's holding 4 bottles of milk. Pat, she says, and laughs again. I open the screen door and they both stop talking. Hi, Bunny, she says. You're up early. It's hot, I say. Hi, Mr. Mulligan. Hello, Penny, he says with a big smile. Mr. Mulligan was just telling me how he might be getting a new route. Isn't that interesting, Penny? My mother asks. Real interesting, I say, trying not to roll my eyes. I better be off. Lots of deliveries yet, Mr. Mulligan says, and tips his hat. He walks back to his truck, whistling. We go inside to the kitchen, and Mother pours a cup of coffee, smiling to herself. She didn't smile when I gave her the fox stole last night, she just shook her head and put it in the closet, saying, Now, where would I ever wear it's going to be just you and me and Pop for dinner tonight, she tells me. I have to work late. Okay, I say. I feel bad for my mother sometimes. She works so hard. None of the other kids I know have mothers who have to work. But then, most of them have fathers. Do you have to work at your uncle's store today? She asks. We have deliveries this afternoon. Her mouth purses slightly. Then be sure to give Mimi a hand with the chores this morning. I go to my bedroom and come back a moment later. Here, I say, holding out a small envelope Uncle Ralphie paid me. Bunny, she says, you don't have to give me your money. I want to, I say, going over to the milk money jar and dropping it in. Maybe we can save up and buy a television. We'll see, she says, which means no. Are we going to Aunt Francine and Uncle Donald's for vacation this summer? I ask. Yes, she says. At the end of August. Do we have to? But that house is right on the lake, my mother says, by which she means the house belongs to relatives and is free. Aunt Francine is my mother's older sister. She and her husband have a cabin on Lake George in upstate New York, and we go there every summer. It should be fun, but it isn't, because I always have to watch their 7-year-old daughter, my cousin Lou Ellen. Lou Ellen's a brat. Last summer she got mad because I wouldn't play dolls with her. That night when we were taking a bath together, she reached across and turned on the hot water faucet and it burned me on my back. Mother rushed me home to see Dr. Lathrop, our family doctor, because she didn't trust the doctor at the lake. I had to go to the hospital and everything. Dr. Lathrop had been in the army and knew all about burns and put this medicine on my back called Scarlet Red that stained everything I wore. I had to get a whole new wardrobe. The worst part, though, was watching my mother. She went kind of crazy when I got burned. The entire drive home I kept telling her it didn't hurt. Dr. Lathrop said my nerve endings were destroyed, which is why I didn't feel any pain. I couldn't do anything for the rest of the summer. No playing, no baseball, no bicycle riding, no going to the beach, no nothing. I just lay on my stomach listening to the radio and Pop burping. But Mother thought I was going to die. Even now I'm surprised she lets me leave the house. Well, I'm not taking any baths with Llewellyn, I say. That's probably a good idea, she says, butter ing a piece of toast and passing it to me. Are you getting excited for your birthday? It's almost here. I guess, I say with a shrug. When I was little, I used to ask my mother for a father, but I haven't asked for that in a while. 12's a big birthday, she says. 12 has always seemed pretty old to me. The girls who are 12 are in 7th grade and worry about their hair and are always trying to borrow their older sister's bras. What did you get when you were 12? I ask, curious. My first real piece of jewelry, she says. Really? It was a single-strand pearl necklace. Mimi and Pop said that 12 was old enough to take care of something precious. I still have it. I know that necklace, I say. I wore it to my very first dance. My dress was peach crepe de chine, she muses, looking out the window, twisting the ruby ring on her finger. It's her engagement ring from my father. The sun is streaming through the green gauzy curtains, and my mother looks so beautiful standing there. She is the most beautiful woman I know when she smiles, which isn't nearly often enough. Did you kiss him? I ask. The boy you went to the dance with? Penny. Well, did you? Now, what would you know about kissing, Bunny? Not much. I can't imagine kissing any boy, certainly none of the ones I go to school with. How can you kiss a boy who you watched pick his nose in kindergarten? My mother shakes herself and looks down at the watch on her wrist. Just look at the time. I'm going to be late for work at this rate, she says, and gives me a quick hug, her perfume swirling around me, lily of the valley. Long after she's gone, I imagine my mother young, beautiful, and wearing a peach crepe de chine dress twirling under the moon in my father's arms as Bing Crosby croons dancing in the dark. Mimi's cleaning up the breakfast dishes when Pop says, thought I'd take Penny for a stroll into town. Need me to pick up anything? Mimi smiles and says, let me get my list. Across the table Pop winks and I roll my eyes. I'm just his excuse to go to the tobacco shop to buy cigars. He's not supposed to smoke cigars anymore because Mimi doesn't like the way they smell up the house, but he still buys them every chance he gets and smokes them secretly. There's a pile of cigar stubs behind the azalea bush in the backyard that's been growing for a while now. Mimi hands me the list. She knows better than to give it to Pop. Ready to tear up the pea patch, old girl? Pop asks me as he slaps on his hat. Ready, I say. We start down the block. Pop's walking pretty good with his cane. I've noticed lately that he doesn't have too much trouble walking when he wants to get cigars. It's only when Mimi wants him to take out the trash that his old war wound starts acting up. Hello, Mrs. Farrow, Pop calls. Pop was the block captain during World War II, so he knows everyone. During air raid drills he had to go around the neighborhood making sure that people had their curtains drawn and their lights off, otherwise, the Germans and Japanese would know where to bomb us. Mrs. Dabrowski, who lives next door and is kind of eccentric, would never turn her lights off during the drills, no matter how many times Pop tried to reason with her. Pop said he thought that we were going to be bombed to kingdom come because of that woman. Your tomatoes are looking well, he says. It's all the sun, Mrs. Farrow says. I think it's our best harvest since the war. Pop says that during the war food was rationed, and near the end there wasn't much meat, so people started making burger patties using mashed baked beans and called them Truman burgers after President Truman. Mimi says that there were butter shortages, so we used margarine. She said it came in white slabs, and to make it look better, you would knead in the yellow-orange coloring it came with. I still don't know what Germany and Japan had to do with us not having meat and butter. It's just one more thing PLI probably never understand, like why my mother doesn't like my father's family. My father's family doesn't talk about the war, but Pop Pop sure does, every chance he gets. Pop Pop's favorite story is about a friend of his who was a translator. This fellow was in college, at Harvard, and the government drafted him and taught him Japanese, and it was his job to interrogate the Japanese prisoners of war in California. The information he got from the prisoners helped the government decide to drop the atomic bomb Nagasaki. The first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, but after the second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, the Japanese gave up. Pop Pop showed me a photograph of the translator at the surrender of the Japanese at Tokyo Bay. He looks sort of sad. You'd think he'd be happy the war was over, but I guess he wasn't. Sometimes I feel like a translator. Mother is always asking me this or that about my father's family, and I have to try to figure out what she means, like it's a different language. Certain things just get her upset. Like when she finds out that the uncles have taken me to Shady Grove Cemetery. I don't know why this bothers her so much. You'd think she'd be happy I visit my father, but it has the opposite effect. Or if I go to the Catholic church with Nani, she gets angry even though she doesn't go to church herself. Or if they give me a fancy present or something like that. There are times when I just wish I knew the language she was speaking. Can we get lunch at the sweet shop? I ask Pop Pop. The sweet shop is a luncheonette that has a full fountain. They make awfully good egg creams and ice cream sundaes. Got to eat, I suppose, he says, and then mutters, reckon any place is safer than your grandmother's kitchen. The sweet shop is nearly empty, it's too early for the lunch rush. There's a lady with her daughter sitting in a booth and a man sitting at the counter sipping coffee. We take seats at the counter, and the waitress comes over to take our order. What can I get for you? Hamburger deluxe, Pop Pop says, and turns to me. What'll you have? A sundae with butter pecan ice cream, please. Pop Pop looks at me. That's your whole lunch? I say. Don't tell your grandmother, he says. The food arrives and I take a bite of my sundae. It's delicious. The hot fudge tastes perfect with the butter pecan ice cream. I watch Pop Pop as he carefully takes the lettuce and tomato and pickle and onion off the hamburger and sets them on a little plate on the side. He does the same with the fries. Why don't you just order a plain hamburger? I ask. I'll ask. Lathe deluxe, he says. I like knowing can eat it if I want to. But you never do, I say. What is this? An interrogation? Pop Pop polishes off his hamburger in about 4 bites and then leans back and burps loudly. I pretend that I don't know him. We pay and go back out and start down the street again. A bunch of men in army uniforms walk by us and enter the VFW hall. Usually on the 4th of July, all the veterans get dressed up and have a parade. Pop Pop says that after the war ended, there was a big ticker tape parade in New York City. Now that's a parade I'd like to have seen. Pop Pop stops outside the tobacco shop. Teal, just be a minute. I sit down on the bench, where another kid is already sitting. His name is Robert and he's skinny and only in 2nd grade and he's always sitting out here. Want one? He asks, showing me a handful of gumballs from his pocket. Thanks, I say, and take a red one. It's warm and melting, but I pop it in my mouth anyway. Where's Frankie? He asks. At home, I think, I say. I'm not surprised he knows Frankie. Everyone does. It's just the kind of boy Frankie is. What's your father smoke? I ask. Camels, he says. What about yours? Cigars, I say. It's my grandfather. He nods wisely. I thought he looked kind of old. A boy named Arthur comes up with his father. Wait here with the other kids, you hear? His father tells him. Arthur sits down next to Robert. We're like the three monkeys, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Next to the tobacco shop is a cafe. There are always old Italian men there, drinking dark coffee that looks like tar served in little cups and reading the Italian language newspapers. They're newspapers that are printed in Italian so people can find out what's going on if they don't know English. Uncle Nunzio told me that my father used to write for one of these Italian language newspapers every once in a while, although his main job was writing for a regular English language newspaper. Buongiorno, Signorina, they call to me. Buongiorno, I call back. How's the professor's little girl today? One of them asks. Good, thanks, I say. They all loved my father. He used to help them when he was alive, translating and writing letters, because most of them didn't know English. A lot of them fought for Italy in World War I. I've always thought it was confusing that Italy was on our side in World War I and on the other side in World War II. It must have been hard for my uncles who fought, because they might have been fighting against their own family. Maybe was on World War IL, it thust family. Ma, that's why they don't like to talk about the war. Stanley Titleswig and his older brother, Jack, walk by. Hi, Penny, Jack says, stopping in front of me. Hi, I say back, feeling a butterfly tickle in my stomach. Having a good summer? Jack asks. Sure, I say shyly. I've never really been interested in boys before, unlike some of the other girls at school, but Jack's different. Something about his curly dark hair and his green eyes. He sure is cute. Stanley's staring at my head. Say, Penny, what happened to your hair? I stammer, I got it cut. Boy, you should go to a different place next time, Stanley says. I close my eyes. When I open them, Pop Pop is standing next to Jack. These boys bothering you, Penny? Pop Pop asks with a scowl. Pop Pop, I say quickly. They look like trouble to me, he says, and burps loudly. Come on, Stanley says, grabbing Jack by his arm. We're going to be late. As they walk away, Jack looks back at me. I can see the shocked expression on his face from where I'm sitting. I got rid of them pretty good, didn't I? Pop Pop says in a pleased voice. You sure did, I say, and sigh.